The courtroom was silent, save for the occasional shuffling of papers and the rhythmic tapping of the judge's gavel against the bench. The air was thick with tension as people took their seats, murmuring in hushed voices about the case at hand. A case like any other. Or so it seemed. Judge Michael Carter adjusted his robe, his fingers tightening around the wooden gavel. He had presided over hundreds of cases, handed down dozens of life-altering sentences. He had seen hardened criminals break down in front of him, and innocent people walk free with tears in their eyes. But today, something was different. As he glanced down at the case file, his breath hitched for a brief moment. Defendant, Danny Reynolds. The name sent a jolt through his chest. It couldn't be. The courtroom doors opened, and the bailiff's voice rang out. Bring in the accused. Michael lifted his gaze just as the officers led a man in handcuffs toward the defendant's chair. And in that moment, time seemed to rewind. The worn-out man standing in front of him, with tired eyes and a scar running down his cheek, was not just another case. He was a ghost from the past. He was Danny Reynolds. His childhood best friend. The boy he had once considered a brother. And now, they stood on opposite sides of the law. Michael's fingers instinctively clenched. His mind wasn't in the courtroom anymore, it was years back, in the broken streets of the neighborhood where they had grown up. He and Danny had been inseparable. Two boys from nothing, trying to make something of themselves. Michael had lived with his single mother, a woman who worked 2 jobs just to put food on the table. Danny, on the other hand, had no one. His father had walked out when he was 5, and his mother drowned her sorrows in a bottle every night. Some nights, Danny had slept on Michael's couch, the two of them whispering in the dark about what their future might look like. "We're gonna get out of here," Danny had once said, staring up at the cracked ceiling of Michael's tiny bedroom. "We'll make something of ourselves." "Yeah," Michael had agreed. "We just have to work hard. Keep our heads down." But keeping their heads down wasn't always easy. The streets had their own rules. Fights, gangs, drugs, everything was a temptation, a trap waiting to pull them under. Michael had taken a different path. He had studied hard, won a scholarship, and gotten out. Danny hadn't. And now, after all these years, the boy who had once called him brother stood before him as a criminal. Michael forced himself back to the present. The prosecutor, a confident man in an expensive suit, stepped forward. "Your Honor, the defendant, Daniel Reynolds, has been charged with armed robbery. Security footage places him at the scene, wielding a firearm. The store owner was threatened but unharmed." Michael kept his expression neutral, but inside, a storm was brewing. Danny, with a gun? The thought was almost impossible to believe. Danny's lawyer, a tired-looking public defender, stepped forward. "Your Honor, my client had no intention of harming anyone. He was desperate, struggling to support his sick mother. The gun was not loaded, and he never fired it." Michael's gaze shifted to Danny. For the first time, their eyes met. A flicker of recognition. A shared past. Danny looked away. The courtroom murmurs faded into the background as Michael studied the man before him. Danny had changed. The boy with the reckless smile was gone. In his place was a man who had lived too hard for too long. His knuckles were scarred, his once bright eyes dulled by something Michael couldn't quite place. Regret? Resignation? Then, Danny spoke. His voice was rougher than Michael remembered. Deeper. "Your Honor? I won't waste your time." He let out a breath. "I know what I did. I know I screwed up. He hesitated. "I just wanted to say I tried." Michael's chest tightened. Tried. He knew what that meant. Tried to find work? Tried to stay clean? Tried not to become another statistic? And failed? Danny let out a small, bitter laugh. "You probably don't remember me." Michael swallowed hard. "I remember." The courtroom fell silent. Danny's lips twitched, almost a smile, but not quite. "Funny, isn't it?" he said quietly. "One of us made it." Michael felt something tighten in his throat. Michael inhaled slowly. His grip tightened around the gavel. Justice or mercy? This was the moment that would define everything. "Mr. Reynolds," he said, his voice steady, "you have committed a crime. And there must be consequences." Danny nodded, as if he had already accepted his fate. Michael exhaled. "However." A pause. The prosecutor frowned. Michael leaned forward slightly. "The court recognizes that while the law is absolute, people are not. You made a mistake, but I also see a man who still has a chance to turn things around." Danny's eyes flickered with something Michael hadn't seen in years. Hope. "I am sentencing you to 2 years of community service and a rehabilitation program, instead of prison." Gasps rippled through the courtroom. Danny blinked. For the first time in a long time, he looked truly stunned. The prosecutor started to object, but Michael raised a hand, silencing him. He looked at Danny one last time. Don't waste this chance. Silence. Then, slowly, Danny nodded. Not as a defendant. Not as a criminal. But as an old friend. As the courtroom emptied, Michael remained seated, staring at the empty chair where Danny had been. Had he done the right thing? Justice and mercy, could they truly coexist? As he gathered his papers, he glanced toward the door. Danny stood there, hesitating. For a brief moment, the years melted away. They were just two kids again, standing at a crossroads. Danny gave him a small nod, then turned and walked away, not in chains, but toward something better. And for the first time in years, Michael believed in second chances. Thank you for watching this powerful story on Storystorm. Life is unpredictable, and sometimes, the choices we make define not just our future, but the lives of those around us. If this story moved you, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to Storystorm for more gripping and emotional tales. Hit the notification bell so you never miss a new upload. Let us know your thoughts in the comments. What would you have done in their place? Until next time, keep watching, keep feeling, and keep the storm of stories alive. Cloud with Lightning Open Book.